Ladies and gentlemen, we are here. The New World Aeternum patch notes have arrived, and there's actually some big changes regarding the target lock-on that a lot of you are going to want to pay attention to. And there's some just generally good changes in these patch notes, so let's jump in. You may have seen this already, but these are the times that it's actually going live. The pre-download is also listed below. I'm not going to go through them because I can't be bothered. But these are when you're going to be able to play it in your local time zone as well, by the way. For me, I'll be up super bright and early on twitch.tv/JOddity, streaming this pretty much all day, all things being well. So come and check me out there. There'll be a link in the description if you do want to do that. You do not want to miss it. But let's jump in. Yeah, target lock changes. They did say that these were coming and they have arrived, and it's actually pretty important. So the first one is that basically when you kill an opponent in PvP, the target lock will now no longer automatically switch to another target. Now, a bit of me thinks that that might make it feel very, very awkward. Like, it's definitely a balance change. It definitely makes sense. But I'm just worried that using it is just going to feel very bad. Normally what was happening, at least in the beta, when you kill somebody, the camera would switch and you'd attack the next person. And the issue with that is that we'd have clips like Trick. So Trick was shooting somebody with the net shot with the blunderbuss, and as soon as the person died, instantly switched and hit somebody he wasn't even trying to hit. All in all, looked a little bit weird, but they've made that change. They've made another change where the target lock will now break more aggressively when you lose sight. So if you go behind a pillar or maybe even ice block, just lose the lock a little bit. I'm a bit worried that this will make the target lock feel clunky, but for balance wise, it makes sense. So I'm not going to say they're bad, because I actually think the balance was too strong, if that makes sense. It was too good, and it sort of broke a lot of the skill-based combat, to be honest. The next one is that the character's turn speed is now slower, which I think is probably the big change here, actually. Because one of the things is that when you're in melee and somebody dodged through you, you basically instantly track them and could hit them immediately. So now this is going to result in slower tracking speed when you are target locked. Depending on the severity of that one, it's pretty huge. Could be major, could be nothing if they've just tweaked it by a minor amount. So we'll have to wait and see. The next one is a temporary one because the blunderbuss is a hit scan range weapon that was working with the target lock, so they're just going to reduce the damage on the blunderbuss. A little bit of a shame if you're a blunderbuss enjoyer, because you didn't really do anything wrong. The game just added target lock and then they're like, oh, we've made it too strong, like way stronger than some of the other weapons, so we need to nerf it a little bit. All right, makes sense. Overall, these are all good changes, I think, or positive changes if you're looking to balance this. I'm a bit worried that it'll feel a bit clunky on console if you're trying to use it, but you know, I mean, the best solution would have been to remove it from PvP. I don't actually mind the idea of target lock, I just don't like the bait and switch like 3 years after launch, right? I'm so used to the game the way that it was, I don't necessarily need or want the change. If we had this from the start, then maybe I'd feel a little bit differently. But overall, yeah, depending on some of the severity of these, big changes, very important changes, sort of positive changes, I think. The next one we sort of knew about a little bit, but let's just talk about it. There's going to be cross-world arena, which is good because arenas can be sometimes a little bit slow to pop. And what's even more important is that there is now skill-based matchmaking. Now, this isn't ranked as far as we know. What it is trying to do is going to, try and balance the game. So look forward to high quality matches against other players of similar skill. So I'm not going to explain it here, but let's say you had 3 great players and 3 very bad players. Well, traditionally, you could end up with all the 3 great players being on one side and the 3 bad players being on another. Now, in that situation, in an arena, won't actually matter that much. You know, you'd have 2 of the bad players and 1 good player, and then 2 of the good players and 1 bad player. But, you know, there should be enough difference in terms of the skill rating to actually compensate and make the teams a lot more fair and balanced, and hopefully make the games a little bit more interesting. I'm a bit worried that Outpost Rush will just end up taking longer, but we'll see. Apparently in the backing data there's some stuff for pre-mades as well. So if you're in a pre-made, your matchmaking rating actually goes up a little bit to compensate for the benefit that you have being in a group, which is fantastic. They're just going through the content here. We know about the PvP, the Cursed Mist. We know that that's the PvP zone. I'm a little bit worried personally about the PvP zone. This chase for the coconuts I think might be a little bit aggressive. Don't think the doubloons are really a problem because you can get some very easily outside of the PvP zone. You can get some in Cutlass Keys and stuff like that. But yeah, I think the coconut, sorry I had it a little bit off screen then. I think the coconut will be the thing that people are stressing for. Hopefully it's not too camped. They said they've got something for large groups being together. You might end up being dispersed, probably just teleported out. We'll have to wait and see, right? We'll have to wait and see when we actually see proper sweaty PvPers, the Musket Union, etc., actually trying to troll people. then we'll see. There's a 10-man raid. We all know that this is coming as well. And you know what? Looks good. There's puzzles. There's 3 bosses, 10 people. Apparently, you don't actually need specific builds, which sort of makes me more excited. That might make it a little bit easier if you're a hardcore player, because it might mean you can just take 10 randoms. But I think that's probably a better balance than needing like specific, everybody needs this 45 weekend and all this kind of jazz. There's new artifacts as well, which they do list here. I'm not going to go through them. I think we've probably already seen these enough at this point. For me, some of the interesting ones is the Ghostly Touch medium gloves, where you dispel some empowers, could be strong maybe, and you gain 10% empower, could be interesting. And then the medium legwear, where you actually, if you're in medium armor, you get 15% more elemental damage. That could be good for like a medium mage. We might end up seeing mages who are tankier but doing similar amounts of damage to what they were doing. Probably not, because there's other ways of getting that damage, but you know, interesting. Like featherweight, for example, you can just be in light but still be tankier. Some people out there will know specific builds. I don't know them at the minute. Like, I don't know who's going to use that the most. I don't think I'd seen this ring before. When you hit a target with elemental attack, not attunement or damage over time, you gain 4% empower for 6 seconds. And it's actually 10 seconds per elemental damage, different types. I mean, that's interesting. Could be good. No idea. Look, if you can find a build for one of the other ones, let me know in the comments. There's a new seasonal reward track. Pretty much the same as normal. You know what it is. I'm not going to go through that one. In fact, they don't go through it either. We do know what else is coming, because thankfully they lay it out here. Soul Trials, the order level 70 content's going to get upscaled. The Sandworm, the Hatchery, and Winter Runeforge trial, for example. Not sure about the rewards for these. I haven't seen them. The Sandworm's worth it. These others too, maybe. I actually quite like the bosses in the Hatchery, so, you know, if that's good, I'll do it. We're going to get the swimming, the cinematic storytelling, the new repeatable expedition quests. Didn't know about that, but okay, sure, fair enough. New fishing quest. Oh, love me some fishing. I'm being sarcastic, they're not really that bothered about it. But we have another confirmation, by the way, that there is a 4th character slot coming. That was in a massively OP interview, but confirmed here. Cross-platform play, obviously consoles coming. New starting experience, performance optimizations, new standard worlds, enhanced control support, player archetypes, and minimum gear score increase to 75. Okay, you know what's coming. Let's get onto the patch notes. Things that you might not have known. And it's at this point I just realized I was going through the patch note version of this. Everything that I said is still true. It's just, you know, it's laid out slightly differently here. And let's get onto the actual patch notes proper. And the first thing is very interesting. Scylla and Chardis have been changed when it comes to Lazarus. And apparently, in addition to new mechanics and new enemies and unique behaviors between regular and mutated difficulties of the expedition. Enjoy this in Laz. This is what I think mutations should have been, by the way. I really don't like the mutation system. I think just having scaling difficulty would have been better rather than the mutations. I mean, we're still going to have the mutations, but at least this is a start, right? And bad boy Chardis getting a change. We'll see if it's still as boring. Hopefully not. And then there's loads of fixes, guys. Like, I don't want to be here all day. If you want to check out somebody, Ginger Prime, he sits there and like reads all the notes. I just don't have that in me to at least do it on stream. Or not stream. I'm not streaming. On video. I will be streaming though. Come and join me on Twitch. I'm going to try and pick out the most important bits. If I miss something, let me know in the comments. A little bit of a change to threat generation. I'd seen this before, but basically it's going to be easier to gain threat with the sword and shield. You can actually just block and gain threat apparently, which is going to be interesting. But you're also going to have reduced threat from the life staff and void gauntlet. So the tank should be having more threat. The healer should be having less. Would make the combat a little bit easier, I guess, technically. I'm going to highlight this one and just go back a little bit because I swear they've changed this before and, you know, people were arguing with me by saying, no, they've never touched it. I think this is to fix the issue where when you actually hit somebody, it doesn't reduce their health because if they're above a certain amount of con or a certain amount of health, it doesn't do that. I think they fixed it once, then it went back, and now apparently they may have fixed that again. That might be what this note is. Little sneaky one here. They've updated the damage scaling to lower damage increase when using only one weapon. So basically you could take off your secondary weapon and do more damage because your gear score was lower, which meant that your scaling was higher, which meant you did more damage. There's some weapon changes. Again, I'm not going to go all through these. I hate trying to go through these and then trying to predict the meta. I'm just not that kind of guy. I'm a meta follower, not a meta leader. I'll let smarter, better people tell you what's actually going up and down. A lot of them are just fixes actually rather than big balance changes. I mean, we know the sword and shield's got a little bit of a rework on one of its abilities. Sort of does like an uppercut now, which is quite cool. The rest of these, I'm just not gonna try and predict, right? If you're really that interested, go and read these yourself. I'll put it in the description in a minute and below. Well, you'll see it. It'll be there now. A nice little change here. Invasions are currently disabled on the new standard worlds because people aren't going to be geared and ready for it. So, you know, that makes sense. Coatings are now going to work like honing stone. So if you don't know, like Angry Earth coating and stuff like that, infused Angry Earth coating, you have to apply it to both weapons and it only applies to the weapon that you have out. Now it's just going to be like a coating. You're just going to take it once. Actually will reduce the requirement for these by half. So, well, by, is it 50%? I can't do the maths, whatever the maths is. But yeah, you'll reduce the amount needed now. So this one's a sneaky one, which it's not really sneaky because they're saying it, right? But I just don't know why they've done this. Well, I do know why they've done this. They've done this for money, and that's fair enough. Transmog tokens can no longer be obtained from elite chests, so you don't get the free ones in the game anymore. A lot of people would farm these week in, week out to get your transmog tokens, and now you can't. Now you gotta pay with that money. Meh. They've done it. It is what it is. I like calling out little ones that don't really make any difference, but are just confusing. They've reduced the limit for character names to 15 from 16. They've lowered it by 1. I wonder if that means people who have 16 character names are going to get a rename. I also wonder why. Is it literally just to help with the server? Don't know. Interesting though. Some of the very naughty words, by the way, are just never going to get sent. They're not going to get put in the chat. They have this zero tolerance filter. I mean, it makes sense. There's some words that you're, never going to allow. So, oh, this next one is huge for me, by the way, because there are times when I would be streaming and I just get a random crash or something like that, and I'd be locked out of content basically for an hour and 10 minutes. What they're doing is they're increasing the disconnect rejoin grace period for the cross-world modes, war and invasion. So for me, that was mainly Outpost Rush, and it's going from 1 minute to 3 minutes. And I could not get back in on time, right? The game just took that long to load. I do think New World Aeternum might load a little bit quicker, but the version that's going away, yeah, it just took that long to load that I never got back in on time, and then I'd have a massive queue. Absolute pain in my ass. I hated it. Thank you for this. Like, it's not like I was trying not to get back in. By the time I got back in, I was already kicked out. So good change there. And that's it. To be honest with you, there's so many fixes in here. It's like almost all fixes. Like, if you look at the lines, these are all fixes. These are all fixes. These are all fixes. There's some changes, right? But a lot of them are just fixes. And fixes are good, but not that sexy. The main one that people are going to talk about are these target lock changes. And the reality is we need to see it in action. And action begins tomorrow morning. Join me on Twitch. Do it. Or don't. Play the game. Live your life. Have a beautiful day though. Goodbye.